So for today's presentation for you guys, I know that I can't see you guys. If I could see you, I feel like I could probably see you guys giggling, thinking resumes are never rocking. Well, you know what? Today we're going to try to rock these resumes a little bit. And let me go ahead and enable my camera. Kind of forgot about that. We'll see if that works. We'll give it a sec. Yeah, so we're going to talk about resumes today and how we can make them rock. They're not always the most fun, but nowadays and historically, they've always been needed. It's something that we absolutely need in order to get employed. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what they are, how to tackle them, and some tips to help you conquer. Okay, so to get started and to dive in, we want to talk about what is a resume. Well, we all know we've seen different styles of them. We've seen them on paper, we've seen them online, but a resume in a very simple kind of recap, it's a document. It just captures a summary of all of your skills and your experience. And so it's essentially, like I said, hashtag qualifications. And it just allows the employer to have one simple way to look at something and kind of identify all the experience that you have and just review what you've covered, what you're capable of, and what you will bring to the team. Okay, so what is the purpose of a resume? Well, the purpose of a resume is to help you land the interview. Other than the application when you apply to a job, the resume is the first thing that the employer is going to see. So this is kind of their first perception of you, the idea that they're being presented. So it's in your hands to make it successful so that you can actually land that interview. And then we're going to cover some quick facts. So for today's presentation, I don't want to bore you guys to death because I know that resumes is not the most fun thing, but I tried to cover information that I think will help you take it home and keep it in mind so that when you tackle your resume, you'll kind of have some steps to walk through so that you can feel a little more comfortable on your journey in creating your resume. So employers will spend no more than 10 seconds when they're reviewing your resume. It's a common misconception. A lot of people think, oh, I'm going to make my resume super long. I'm going to jam pack all the information, all the wonderful things about me so that the employer can see how great I am and they can read all the information. Well, most of the time, the longer your resume, the higher the chances you have of the resume just being tossed out. Employers don't have that time. So the more organized and brief you can keep it, the better. And the other thing to keep in mind also is that employers are reviewing hundreds of resumes. Even if we think about the smaller, even if we think about the smaller businesses, local businesses, they still have quite a bit of resumes to get through. So it's kind of in your hands to help yourself so that you can get yourself noticed. And the other thing to keep in mind is employers are always scanning for keywords. So even if you created what you believe is a great resume, it's not always going to be great in their eyes unless you have the specific keywords that they've included in their job description. And we're going to touch a little bit or deep dive a little bit more when we get to another part of the presentation on that. And then your resume is not always going to be completely read, like we mentioned earlier, because they only have limited amount to get through them and because they have so many resumes to get through. Employers don't always read your entire resume. Again, they're scanning for their words, so they're just hoping to pick out and find in you what they need for their positions. And your resume is always going to be kind of like a working document. And I say working document because even if you create one specific resume for one position, you're going to need a different resume for a different position. So each position that you apply for will require an individual targeted resume. And a targeted resume is going to increase your opportunities of being selected for the interview because what you're doing is essentially making yourself stand out to the employer and letting them know, look, I am qualified for the position you're seeking to fill. Okay, and there's 3 different styles of resume. So no matter what kind of resume you decide to go with, you're always going to have 3 to choose from. There's one that's called the chronological, which organizes your work history. It's from the most recent to the oldest. So you start with the latest work experience that you have at the very top and the oldest at the bottom. And this one is very, very handy for those who have a steady work history. So they have quite a bit of information to capture. That just helps organize all the information so that we can get through it chronologically and it's easy on the eyes for the employer. Then there's also the functional. The functional is the opposite of the chronological. This one's ideal for people who have a little bit of work experience or for students, for people who have just graduated. It can highlight your volunteer work. You can also include transferable skills, any of the skills that you've acquired either from clubs, from sports, from volunteer work. So It's a really good way to highlight where you're at without worrying about excluding work history or missing anything. And then the last style is also a combination. This one I like to say is a little bit of both of the previous one. It's a hybrid. You're literally combining both the chronological and the functional resumes together. So you're including some work history and then a little bit of highlight on your qualifications. And it emphasizes your skills and your work experience because you're able to combine both of them. And out of the three, the one that I highly recommend to students would be the functional. This one kind of allows you to highlight all of the things that you've done in your education, as a student, your experience as a student, without feeling worried about including work experience or information or history that you don't necessarily have. That keeps you organized, and you don't want to lie on a resume either. So this one allows you to highlight your school experience by being truthful and just keeping it simple for the employer. And you guys, I'm going to apologize for the background noise. That is my kitten that I'm having a hard time controlling today. Okay, so here is a sample of a functional resume, which is the one that we recommend to you guys. And this one has, it's outlined with a little bit of information where you start out with your qualifications. You're always going to outline your qualifications at the very top, why you're qualified. You're going to focus on your education. Of course, you don't need to go back to when you were in preschool, elementary school, any of that. You would highlight in the center the involvement that you've had in education, the activities that you've completed, any major skills that you feel should be noted or should stand out. And then at the very bottom, for those of you that have had like summer jobs, if you do have work experience, that would be an area where you could definitely include that toward the bottom. And this is a sample of a student that we helped in the OMAC area with their resume. Okay, so we're talking a lot about resumes, and now you're probably asking, well, how do you build your resume? And the picture here that I have on the screen, that's not going to cut it. That's not going to be good enough. So even if you think you're good hot stuff, that's not going to paint the picture for the employer. So what you want to do is determine which of the three styles is going to work best for you. Like I said, I highly recommend the functional one, but if you feel that there's one specific style that would speak to your accomplishments much, much better, go ahead and select that one. And then once you have that one, you've selected it, gather all of your information. So your work history, your volunteer work, your clubs or sports involvement. So just make sure you get all of your information ready. And you might be thinking, well, that would be a hassle, but it's going to save you a headache, because that way you'll be able to put everything together, have it set to go, and then you can sit down and actually start to tackle it. So another thing that we recommend is if you are applying to a specific job, if you're not just creating a general resume, if you're applying to a specific job with an employer, we highly recommend that you review the job posting and then work off of that job posting to actually create your draft. And you literally get started by just jumping in. It can be a little bit scary, but the best place to start is just to start plugging in some information. And the great thing is you can always edit and move things around, but it's just about jumping in, using that specific style that you select as a guide, and going from there. Okay, so you guys heard me say a little bit earlier that you should always target your resume. And what I mean by that is using the job description as your guide. So if you're applying for a position, say you found a position, whether it's on Craigslist or on Indeed, we recommend either print it out or keep it open on your computer screen if you're working on your computer, and use that job description as your guide. You want to highlight the keywords and the phrases that the employer is asking for, like specific skills, and include those same words in your resume. Again, being completely truthful. You don't want to lie. You don't want to say that you're capable of doing something or that you've done something if it's not true. But what we mean by this is when you pull up the job posting, if they're looking for computer skills, if they're looking for either communication skills, or even if it's hard labor, if you feel like you're going into a construction position or something for a summer job and they're looking for specific tasks, those words and skills are the ones that you would highlight within your resume, and that's effective targeting. It's matching up your skill set to what they're asking for. So say that you're applying for a position that, for example, let's say you're going to be a TA for the summer. I worked with the Wenatchee School District many, many years ago as a TA for the summer. I'm not going to include in their work experience, maybe I had also worked at the pool. I'm not going to list all the duties that I did at the pool because they don't necessarily transfer to or match to a TA. Some of them can, but you wouldn't list every single work experience detail that you've had in your life. just for the sake of making your resume look good. You want to be effective in targeting. So you want to match up the skills that the employer is asking for to the skills that you've possessed in specific positions. And then a good quick tip also is to always save your resumes by name. So if you're applying to McDonald's, maybe give that one a McDonald's cook title. If you're applying to the pool, title that one the pool. So you always want to save them. And especially nowadays, because a lot of the time with employers or places that you apply to, a lot of them ask for your resume to be uploaded online. And if you're uploading online, you want to be careful and not accidentally submit the wrong one. So this is a good tip that will save you a little bit of a headache in the long run. And you want to look professional. Okay, so here are some quick tips that will definitely help you in the long run so that you can get together a good targeted resume and so that it's clean and professional. Again, always target. You're probably going to, if you join more presentations or if you ever come into our office with WorkSource, you're going to hear us talk about targeting a ton. It's the best way to conquer your resume. You also want to keep in mind the format. You want to keep it brief. We always recommend 1 page. That's the ideal length of a resume. But if you get to a point in your life where you have an extensive work history and after targeting your information, it still applies and you feel like you need to have more than 1 page, then go with 2. But do not exceed 2. We always recommend 1 page ideal. And if you have extensive work history, definitely 2 will work, especially if it's a digital resume so that when the employers are reviewing it, they can pull it up on their screen and have the pages side by side. So that keeps it easy so that the employer can kind of flow through it as they review it. You also want to use bulleted statements. We recommend that you stay away from paragraphs. Paragraphs on resumes will kind of increase your chances of the employer totally dismissing your resume. If you keep bullets, it's just clean, it's a summary, it's simple, and it helps the employer just get through things much, much quicker. Also, keep it clean and professional. And by this, we mean use standard paper, 8.5 by 11 computer paper. It does not have to be fancy, old school parchment paper. It doesn't have to be tie-dye paper, no glitter, nothing like that. This is not Legally Blonde for any of you that know what I'm talking about. And also with the fonts, same thing. Keep the fonts very clean. Times, Arial, those are really good fonts. They're just clean and legible. And black ink is good. No need for color. You want to stand out for the right reasons when it comes to your resume. You don't want to stand out for the wrong reasons. And then some guidelines to keep in mind. Use action verbs. And when we say action verbs, we mean words that show action. So you want to kind of give an idea to the employer of what you did so that they can kind of envision what you were doing in that moment. Also include transferable skills. So if there's something that you did in a club, in a class that you feel where you gained a skill that you can carry on into the position that you're seeking to fill, go ahead and include that information. Transferable skills are something that employers really look for. And we may think, well, it's not that big of a deal, but it is. It really is, because they always say, I work with employers in our office and they always say, I can train you to do the job that I need you to do. But when it comes to certain skills like soft skills, interpersonal skills, and transferable skills, those are things that they love for you to bring with you. And then also quantify your achievements. When you're listing accomplishments on your resume, use numbers because numbers show results. So if you highlight how many things you accomplished with numbers or how many people you helped or the percentage, the results, numbers always put things into perspective. It just shows effectiveness. And this is where we've reached the end of our presentation today. And I hope that when you guys get out there with these little tips in mind, you feel as happy and as ready to go as this guy jumping into the elevator. I want you guys to be this guy jumping into the elevator when you're jumping into your resume. And if you guys ever feel like that you want to know more, and this, I know this presentation was kind of condensed for the purpose of today, but feel free to reach out to Carrie and her team. And our office is always available to do presentations at different schools. We do that quite a bit too.
That was terrific, Maria. Thank you. Again, lots of information. So any questions out there? Oh, we got a couple comments coming in. Oh, thank you. Great presentation. Awesome. Thank you, Maria. And then we do have a question. What's the best approach for creating a resume for someone who is changing careers?
I would say go ahead and pull up information on both of the careers. What the skills that are required for the career that you formerly held and then the career that you're looking to move into or interested in going into, and then compare the two, pick out the skills that are the same or different skill sets or different criteria that they're asking for so that you can target the resume based upon that. So again, that goes back to the targeting, and it sounds like a hassle, but that's what really makes a resume effective, so that you can carry on information and not exclude anything from a previous resume, but it's going to be bringing those skills targeted to what that career or the employer is asking for.
Nice. Okay, Claudia H has a question. What are some keywords to put on your resume?
The keywords, that's a super good question. That's something that our students always ask. And I can tell you it's going to depend. The keywords depend on the position that you're looking to apply. So I could tell you, oh, include ABC, but that's not going to get you anywhere. It depends on the position. If the employer says they're looking for somebody with a specific typing speed, with communication skills, with good written skills, or specific certifications, those are the things that you want to include in the resume. So those keywords are going to depend on what the employer is looking for.
Great. Yep. Okay. A couple more here. What is your contact info to reach out and have you present at schools? And actually, if you want, Maria, I can handle that one. I happen
Yeah,
to.
absolutely.
Okay.
I would love that, Carrie. Thank you.
Okay. Nicole, I'll take care of that and send that to you after the event. Again, Lilani, when applying for your first job, how would you bunch up your volunteer hours? Would you name them all individually or bunch them up into, a solid group of hours?
If you feel that there's similar volunteer work that you've done, you could label it as a specific topic, and you would have a section where it's volunteer work. And you can, if you feel that you have a lengthy list and there are similarities, kind of condense it together. So if you've done a lot of, let's say, like cleanup work in the community, maybe condense those together. So gather those as one, as opposed to listing every single location where you've done that type of work. So a little bit of condensing.
Nice. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. We got a thank you from Nicole on the connection. All right. We have just about 3 minutes left. Are there any other questions out there?
And thank you guys for bearing with me. I know that resumes is not the funnest topic, but I feel like you guys can totally rock them. We try to rock them quite a bit, and we're available to help you guys, so you're not alone.
Yep, absolutely. Good deal. All right. Well, yeah, it looks like we're down to 1 minute. If there's not any last questions, I definitely want to say thank you thank you very much, Maria. But we, great question again, Claudia. Can community hours go onto your resume?
Yes, you can definitely include a section where you capture those, and those do make a difference when employers are reviewing the information. So yes, absolutely.
Excellent.